The crystal spires of Luminara burned against the dark sky. Admiral Kang Ho pressed his translucent hands against the command center window and watched his world die. Below, the streets that once sang with harmonic frequencies now screamed with terror. The hive had come. Kang Ho turned back to his officers. Their crystal bodies flickered with stress patterns, casting nervous light across the war room. "Status report," he said, though he already knew the answer would bring no comfort. "Sir, the Western colonies have gone silent," reported Captain Yerim, her voice creating small chimes in the air. The hive consumed everything. No survivors. The Veltar had always been a peaceful people. Their crystal bodies evolved to channel light and create beautiful sounds. They built cities that sparkled like jewelry and made art from pure energy. War was something they only read about in ancient texts. Until now. "The outer defense grid?" Kang Ho asked. "Destroyed, sir. The hive creatures. They ate the energy, barriers. Consumed them like food." Kang Ho felt his internal light dim with despair. The hive was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They were not just invaders, they were consumers. They ate everything, matter, energy, even thought itself. Wherever they went, they left empty space behind. "Sir," called Tech Officer Daeho from his station. "The Council fleets are requesting immediate evacuation. They say the planet is lost." "No." Kang Ho's voice rang like a struck bell. "This is our home. There must be something we can do." But even as he spoke, reports flooded in. The hive had broken through the northern shields. The eastern cities were being consumed. Soon there would be nothing left of Luminara but empty space and hungry darkness. Daeho's station began beeping rapidly. "Sir, incoming priority transmission from the Galactic Council." The main screen flickered to life. Council Leader Morven appeared, his blue skin pale with worry. "Admiral Kang Ho, you must evacuate immediately. We cannot stop the hive, nothing can." "There has to be a way," Kang Ho insisted. "Some weapon, some defense we haven't tried." Morven's tentacles writhed with frustration. "We've tried everything. Energy weapons feed them. Physical barriers delay them only minutes. Biological weapons make them stronger. The hive adapts to everything we throw at them. What about the outer rim species, the warrior races?" The Kronar tried. Their entire battle fleet was consumed in hours. The Zephyrians lasted one day. The hive learns from every victory. It grows stronger with every meal. Kang Ho stared at the tactical display. Red markers showed hive position spreading across his homeworld like a disease. At the current rate, Luminara would be completely consumed within 6 hours. "Sir?" Daeho spoke quietly. "There is one option." Every eye in the command center turned toward the young tech officer. His crystal body flickered with nervous energy. "The Deathworld Registry," Daeho continued. "The restricted database. It lists all the most dangerous planets in the galaxy." Morven's image sputtered with shock. "Absolutely not. Those worlds are forbidden for good reason. The creatures on Deathworlds are beyond dangerous, they're nightmares." "We're already living in a nightmare," Kang Ho replied. "What could be worse than the hive?" Daeho's fingers danced over his controls. "I'm accessing the registry now, sir." The screen filled with warnings. Red text scrolled endlessly. Danger, extreme hazard, contact forbidden, lethal environment, hostile inhabitants. "Look at this," Daeho whispered. "Planet designation, Earth. Classification, Class 20. Deathworld." Kang Ho had never heard of a Class 20 before. "What does that mean?" "It means the danger level is off the charts," Morven said, his voice filled with fear. "Class 18 worlds are considered impossible to survive on. The atmospheric composition alone would kill most species instantly." Daeho read from the file. "Atmospheric content, 21% oxygen, 78% nitrogen. Surface gravity, 1.0 standard. Warning: oxygen is highly corrosive. Gravity exceeds safe limits for most species. Planet experiences violent weather patterns, seismic activity, and radiation exposure." "And something lives there?" Captain Yerim asked. According to this, yes. Species designation. Humans. Warning level. Maximum. Notes say they not only survive these conditions but appear to thrive in them. The command center fell silent except for the distant rumble of hive advancement. Through the windows they could see the crystal spires in the distance beginning to dim as the hive consumed their energy. Sir, reported Lieutenant Bo Young from communications. The hive has breached the central district. Estimated time to reach this facility, 2 hours. Kang Ho looked around at his officers. Their lights were dimming with despair. Outside, his beautiful world was being eaten alive. The Council had abandoned them. The strongest warrior races in the galaxy had failed against the hive. But maybe, just maybe, something from a nightmare world could fight other nightmares. Deho, he said finally, send a message to this Earth. Sir, the Council explicitly forbids contact with Deathworlds. The punishment doesn't matter if we're all dead, Kang Ho interrupted. Send the message. Morven's image flickered with anger. Admiral, you don't understand. Deathworld species are unpredictable. They might be more dangerous than the hive itself. Then perhaps they can fight the hive, Kang Ho replied. Deho, compose the message. The young officer's hands shook as he worked. What should I say, sir? Tell them we need help. Tell them the hive is consuming our world. Tell them we have nowhere else to turn. Should I mention what we can offer in return? Kang Ho looked out at his dying world. What do we have left to offer? Just tell them we're desperate. The message composed quickly. To the inhabitants of Earth. This is Admiral Kang Ho of the Veltar Defense Force. Our world is under attack by entities called the Hive. They consume everything. We face extinction. Please help us. Sending now. Sir? Deho reported. They waited. The hive continued its advance. More districts went dark. The beautiful songs of his people were replaced by silence. Then Deho's station lit up. Sir, incoming transmission from Earth. The main screen changed. A new face appeared, unlike anything they had ever seen. Flesh instead of crystal or chitin. Strange coloring. But the eyes? The eyes held something the Veltar recognized. Intelligence, and something else. Something dangerous. This is Commander Dongwu of the Terran Defense Force, the creature said. Its voice was deep and somehow reassuring. Message received and understood. Warhost mobilizing. Hold your position. Help is coming. The transmission ended. Morven's image was shaking. Admiral, what have you done? You've just invited Deathworlders to our sector of space. Do you realize what this means? Kang Ho looked out at his burning world, then back at the screen. It means we have hope. For the first time in days, his crystal body began to glow with something other than fear. Whatever these humans were, whatever made them survive on an impossible world, they were coming. The hive had never faced Deathworlders before. Perhaps it was time they learned what that meant. Dr. G1 had always been curious about other species, but nothing had prepared her for this. The Veltar scientists sat in her laboratory aboard the evacuated research station, studying every piece of data they could gather about the approaching humans. What she found terrified and amazed her in equal measure. Look at this, she said to her assistant Kyung Ho, as data scrolled across her screen. The human ships are broadcasting their atmospheric composition to us. They want us to know what they breathe. Kyung Ho peered over her shoulder. His crystal body flickered with confusion. 21% oxygen, that's impossible. Oxygen is a corrosive gas. It breaks down most materials over time. Not just breathe it, G1 continued, reading deeper into the data. They require it. Without it, they die in minutes. And look at this. They evolved in this environment. It's not technology keeping them alive. They actually need this poison to live. The research station shuddered as another Hive scout ship passed nearby. The creatures were everywhere now, slowly consuming everything in the system. But something strange was happening. The Hive scouts seemed nervous, circling the outer edges of the system instead of advancing, almost like they were waiting for something. Doctor, called tech specialist Minjai from across the lab. I've intercepted more human communications. You need to hear this. Ji-won hurried over to his station. The communications were in a strange language, but their computers had begun translating the patterns. This is Captain Min Ho to Fleet Command, came the translated voice. Approaching target system. Environmental readings confirm standard operational parameters. Gravity at 1.0. Oxygen levels adequate. Radiation within normal limits. Ji-won stared at the translator. Normal limits? Min-jae, check these radiation readings. Her assistant ran the calculations. Doctor, the radiation levels they're calling normal would kill most galactic species within hours. And they're saying gravity at 1.0 is adequate? That's crushing force for most of us. But the most shocking thing was what came next. All crews prepare for standard deployment, Min-ho continued. No environmental suits required. Repeat, no suits required for surface operations. Kyung-ho's crystal body went completely dark with shock. They're going to operate without protection? In those conditions? Ji-won was beginning to understand something that filled her with both hope and terror. These humans weren't just surviving impossible conditions. They were treating them as normal. The environment that would kill her people was comfortable for them. The station's communication system activated. All personnel, this is Admiral Kang-ho. The human advance ships have reached our system. Prepare for first contact. Through the observation windows, they could see them coming. The human ships were different from anything in the galactic fleet. Where most species built sleek, graceful vessels that flowed through space like art, the human ships looked like weapons. Angular, aggressive, covered in strange protrusions that seemed designed for war. Dr. Ji-won, report to Docking Bay 7, came the announcement. You've been selected for the first contact team. Ji-won felt her internal light flicker with nervousness. She had studied alien species her entire life, but she had never met a Deathworlder before. Everything in the galactic databases warned against it. The docking bay was filled with Veltar officials, all glowing with various patterns of fear and excitement. Admiral Kang-ho stood at the center, his crystal body radiating determination. Despite the stress patterns running through his form, the human ship is requesting permission to dock, reported the station controller. They're asking about our atmospheric requirements. Tell them we need low oxygen, low gravity, and radiation shielding. Kang-ho replied. A few minutes later, a response came back. They say they can adapt to our requirements for a short time, but they're concerned about us. They want to know if we'll be safe in their ship's environment. Ji-won found that strange. Most species assumed others could adapt to their conditions. These humans seemed worried about their guests' safety. The docking tube extended and connected with a solid thunk. Then the most amazing thing happened. The human ship began adjusting its own environment to match theirs. Ji-won watched the readouts in amazement as the human vessel pumped out most of its oxygen and reduced its artificial gravity. They're poisoning their own ship to make us comfortable, whispered Kyung-ho. The airlock hissed open, and the humans emerged. Ji-won had expected monsters. The galactic databases described Deathworlders as savage, violent creatures driven by constant survival instincts. Instead, she saw beings that looked almost fragile compared to the crystal Veltar. They were small, soft-looking, covered in strange material that seemed to be artificial skin. The lead human stepped forward and made a gesture that seemed peaceful. I am Captain Min Ho of the Earth vessel Resilient. Thank you for allowing us aboard your station. His voice was calm, almost gentle. Ji-won noticed he was breathing carefully, taking shallow breaths. The adjusted atmosphere was clearly difficult for him, but he showed no signs of distress. Admiral Kang-ho approached cautiously. Captain Min Ho, I am Admiral Kang-ho. We are grateful for your response to our distress call. The Hive, Min Ho said simply. We need to understand what we're facing. Our scientists need to examine samples, study their behavior patterns, understand their biology. Behind him, a human female stepped forward. She was even smaller than the captain, but there was something about her eyes that suggested intelligence beyond anything Ji-won had seen. I am Dr. Hye-jin, xenobiologist, the human said. I specialize in hostile alien life forms. And this is my colleague, Dr. Tae-jin, our combat biologist. Combat biologist, Ji-won asked. I study dangerous life forms, Tae-jin explained. Species that evolved to kill, to consume, to destroy. On Earth, we have many such creatures. Understanding them helps us fight them. The casual way he spoke about fighting lethal creatures made Ji-won's crystal body flicker with amazement. On to her peaceful world. The most dangerous thing they had encountered was a storm. These humans spoke of deadly predators like they were common neighbors. We have hive samples in our research lab, Ji-won offered, but I must warn you they're extremely dangerous. The biological material is still active, still trying to consume surrounding matter. Dr. Hae-jin smiled, an expression that somehow managed to be both gentle and terrifying. Doctor, we appreciate the warning, but on Earth, we regularly study viruses that could wipe out entire populations, bacteria that eat metal, and organisms that thrive in acid. We'll take appropriate precautions. As they walked through the station corridors, Ji-won noticed the humans moving carefully, almost delicately. It took her a moment to realize they were holding back, moving slower than normal to avoid damaging the station with their strength. In the research lab, she showed them the hive samples contained in maximum security fields. The black, writhing mass pressed against the energy barriers, constantly seeking escape. Fascinating, Dr. Tae-jin said, leaning closer to examine the samples. It's remarkably similar to some Earth organisms. The reproductive strategy reminds me of certain fungi. The consumption patterns are like slime molds, and the adaptation rate resembles some of our viruses. You have creatures like this on your world? Kyung-ho asked in horror. Similar principles, smaller scale, Hae-jin replied. We've learned to fight biological threats through biological means: fire, chemical warfare, environmental manipulation, competitive species introduction. Ji-won realized something incredible. These humans didn't just survive in impossible conditions. They had evolved alongside creatures that were trying to kill them. Their entire world was apparently a training ground for fighting the impossible. The hive has consumed 17 worlds, Admiral Kang-ho said quietly. The greatest military forces in the galaxy couldn't stop them. Captain Min-ho looked up from the samples. Admiral, with respect, the greatest military forces in the galaxy evolved on safe worlds. They learned to fight other civilized species with rules and honor. The hive doesn't follow rules. But you can fight them? Kang-ho asked. Dr. Ji-won, Tae-jin said. What's the most dangerous predator on your world? Ji-won thought for a moment. We have some crystal formations that can create sharp edges if they fall. I suppose those could be dangerous. The humans exchanged glances. Captain Min-ho spoke gently. Admiral, imagine if your world was full of hive-like creatures. Imagine if your people had to fight them every day just to survive. Imagine if your children learned to battle consuming monsters before they learned to walk. That sounds horrible, whispered Kyung-ho. It made us strong, Hae-jin replied. And now we're here to share that strength with you. Through the station windows they could see more human ships arriving. Not the sleek vessels of exploration, but the angular warships of a species that had learned to fight nightmares. The hive scouts at the edge of the system began retreating. For the first time since the invasion began, Ji-won felt hope. These gentle-voiced humans with their careful movements and polite words carried something the galaxy had never seen before. They carried the fury of a death world, and they were here to help. The space around Luminara had never seen anything like it. Admiral Seung-wan stood on the bridge of the flagship Indomitable, watching as 500 human warships took position around the dying Veltar homeworld. Behind them came the transport vessels, massive ships carrying 200,000 human soldiers, engineers, scientists, and support personnel. Sir, reported Communications Officer Da-yoon, the Galactic Council fleet is requesting immediate conference. Seung-wan nodded. Put them through. The main screen filled with faces from a dozen different species. Council leader Morven dominated the center, his blue skin pale with shock. Admiral Seung-wan, what is the meaning of this? You've brought an invasion force. This is a rescue operation, Seung-wan replied calmly. The Veltar requested assistance against the Hive. 500 warships for a rescue? Demanded General Crix of the warrior Kronar. My entire battle fleet was only 50 ships. Different approaches to warfare, Seung-wan said simply. We believe in overwhelming force applied with precise control. On another screen, Admiral Kang-ho watched the massive human fleet with amazement. The Veltar had never seen so many ships in one place. What the humans called a standard response was larger than most galactic armies. Admiral Seung-wan, Kang-ho transmitted. The Hive has completely consumed the northern continent. They're adapting to our defensive strategies faster than we can develop new ones. Understood. Colonel Boram, begin ground operations. From the transport ships, smaller vessels began launching. These weren't the careful, protected dropships most species used. The human Marines descended in what appeared to be controlled falling metal boxes, dropping directly into Hive-controlled territory without any apparent concern for safety. In the Council fleet, species representatives watched in horror as humans fell toward the planet's surface like meteorites. They're committing suicide, whispered Science Officer Velon of the peaceful Etherians. Those descent vehicles have no protection, no shields. They're landing in active combat zones, added General Crix. The Hive will consume them before they can even exit their craft. But when the drop ships hit the ground, something unprecedented happened. The humans emerged immediately, without waiting for the area to be secured, without checking for threats. They simply stepped out and began setting up defensive positions as if landing in a war zone was normal procedure. Colonel Boram's voice crackled over the communications. Beachhead established, beginning sweep and clear operations. The Hive. Creatures are interesting. Report, Colonel, Admiral Seung-wan requested. They're definitely consumption-based organisms, but their attack patterns are familiar, similar to some aggressive species we deal with on Earth. Requesting permission to deploy standard counter-bioform protocols. Granted. What happened next shocked every observer. The humans didn't retreat from Hive attacks, they advanced into them. When Hive creatures swarmed toward their positions, the humans met them with weapons that seemed impossibly destructive. Sir, reported Captain Jae-won from the surface, the Hive bioforms are attempting to consume our equipment. Standard Earth-rated. Materials are holding. They can't break down our alloys. Admiral Kang-ho listened to the reports with growing amazement. Your equipment resists Hive consumption. Our materials are designed to survive Earth conditions, explained Engineer Sung-min, over the comm. Corrosive atmospheres, extreme temperature variations, high radiation. Hive acid appears to be significantly weaker than what our gear normally handles. The real shock came when the humans began pursuing Hive creatures into their own tunnels. Most galactic species couldn't survive in the underground spaces the Hive created. The air was toxic, the pressure wrong, the environment completely hostile. The humans went in anyway. This is Squad Leader Wu Jin, came a transmission from deep underground. Tunnel systems are extensive but not particularly challenging, similar to cave systems on Earth. Beginning explosive clearing operations. Did he say explosive? Admiral Kang-ho asked. Standard procedure, Admiral Seung-wan confirmed. When facing an infestation, sometimes the best solution is controlled demolition. The ground shook as human explosives collapsed entire sections of Hive tunnels, but instead of random destruction, the humans seemed to know exactly which supports to target, which passages to seal, how to trap the creatures in their own nests. How do they know tunnel architecture? Dr. Ji-won asked from her observation post. Captain Minho, still aboard the research station, smiled. Doctor, humans have been fighting in underground environments for thousands of years. We've been cave fighters, tunnel warriors, underground miners. We know how to read structural weaknesses, but the most amazing thing was happening in orbit. Engineer Sung-min had begun constructing defensive platforms around Luminara while the battle still raged. His construction crews worked in open space, building massive installations in the middle of active combat. This is impossible, Council Leader Morven transmitted. You cannot construct orbital defenses during an active invasion. The Hive will attack your workers. They're trying, Sung-min reported casually. But our construction mechs are rated for asteroid mining operations. Hive creatures can't penetrate the armor, and the workers are in fully sealed suits designed for solar radiation exposure. As the human construction crews worked, hive flying forms swarmed around them, trying to consume the building materials. The humans simply continued working, occasionally swatting aside attackers like they were annoying insects. "Sir," reported Communications Officer Dae-Yun, "we're receiving surrender requests from multiple hive clusters." This stunned everyone. The hive had never retreated before, never shown any sign of self-preservation instinct. "The hive is trying to negotiate?" Admiral Kang Ho asked in amazement. "Negative," replied Dr. Hai Jin from her research position. "The hive doesn't negotiate, but it does learn. And right now, it's learning that humans are more expensive to consume than the energy gained from victory." The truth was becoming clear. The hive was a biological calculator, constantly weighing energy input against energy output. Fighting most galactic species provided more energy than the hive expended in conquest. But humans required enormous energy investment to fight, and they provided very little return. "They're realizing we're not worth eating," explained Dr. Tae-Jin. "Our equipment is too hard to digest. Our biology is too aggressive to easily consume, and our response to threat is to become more dangerous rather than weaker." Colonel Boram's report confirmed this. "Hive retreat confirmed. They're abandoning positions faster than we can advance. Looks like they're evacuating the planet entirely." On the Council communication channel, the representatives sat in stunned silence. General Crix finally spoke. "In one day, you've accomplished what 17 galactic fleets could not. How?" Admiral Seung-Wan considered the question carefully. "General, your fleets were designed to fight civilized opponents with civilized rules. The hive isn't civilized. It's a survival-driven biological machine that responds only to cost-benefit analysis." "And you made the cost too high?" "We made ourselves unprofitable," Seung-Wan confirmed. "On Earth, we call it making yourself a hard target. Predators naturally seek easier prey. As the last hive ships fled the system, human crews began the work of restoration, but they didn't work alone. Engineer Sung-min had teams of Veltar scientists working alongside his people, sharing knowledge and techniques. Dr. Ji-won, called Constructor Dongmin, "We'd like your input on these crystal energy networks. Our people are good with metal and ceramics, but crystal technology is new to us." The cooperation was unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Species with completely different evolutionary backgrounds working together, sharing their unique survival adaptations. Admiral Kang Ho watched from his command center as humans and Veltar worked side by side to rebuild his world. The humans moved carefully among the crystal structures, their heavy world strength precisely controlled to avoid damage. The Veltar provided energy manipulation techniques that made human construction far more efficient. Admiral Seung-Wan, Kang Ho transmitted, "How can we ever repay this?" "No payment needed," came the reply. "But we would appreciate trade agreements. Your energy technology could help us improve our own worlds. And perhaps, if other species need help with the hive." Admiral Kang Ho's crystal body glowed with understanding. The humans weren't just rescuers. They were offering to be protectors for the entire galaxy. "There will be other hive attacks," he confirmed. "Other worlds will face what we faced." "Then they should know they're not alone," Seung-Wan replied. "Deathworlders stick together. And now, you're our friends. That makes you honorary Deathworlders too." As more human ships continued arriving, the full Warhost was apparently much larger than even this massive fleet. The galaxy began to understand that everything had changed. The most dangerous species in known space had just declared themselves protectors of the weak, and they had the firepower to make it stick. The war was far from over. Despite their retreat from Luminara, the hive had regrouped in the outer system, learning and adapting. What the galaxy witnessed next would forever change their understanding of what Deathworld tactics actually meant. Commander, Yoon Seo stood in the contamination lab aboard the research vessel Discovery, examining samples that would kill most galactic species just by being in the same room. She wore no protective gear beyond basic clothing. Her team worked with the same casual attitude, handling materials that required maximum containment protocols for other species. "The hive biological signature is interesting," she reported to Admiral Xiongwan. "It's similar to some aggressive bacteria we have on Earth, but much less sophisticated." "Dr. So-Young, what do you think?" Dr. So-Young looked up from her microscope. "The immune response is primitive, single-layer adaptation. On Earth, our immune systems fight multi-generation warfare against constantly evolving threats. This hive system would lose badly against common Earth viruses. Are you suggesting biological warfare?" Admiral Kang Ho asked from his position aboard the command ship. "Not warfare," Yoon Seo replied. "More like introducing them to natural competition. The hive has never faced real biological pressure. They've been the only aggressive organism in each system they've entered." What happened next amazed and terrified the galactic observers in equal measure. The humans began releasing Earth bacteria into space around the hive positions. Not weapons, just normal Earth microorganisms that had evolved in the competitive environment of a death world. "This is Commander Yoon Seo to all units. Deploying biological countermeasures. Standard Earth environmental package." The effect was immediate and devastating. The hive creatures, which had never faced biological competition, found themselves overwhelmed by Earth microorganisms that had spent millions of years learning to fight for every resource. "Sir," reported biospecialist Chan Wu, "hive bioforms are showing massive systemic failures. They can't adapt fast enough to counter Earth-standard bacterial pressure." Dr. Ji-Wan watched from her observation post in amazement. "They're using their own planet's natural environment as a weapon?" "Not a weapon," Dr. Hai-Jin corrected gently. "We're simply introducing natural balance. The hive has been consuming unopposed for so long, they've lost the ability to defend against normal biological processes. But the real demonstration of Deathworld advantages came when the hive counterattacked with their most desperate strategy. They began targeting human ships with concentrated radiation, hoping to disable the crews through energy poisoning. Pilot Chan Wu was leading a squadron through the radiation field when his communication crackled with what sounded like casual conversation. "Navigation, this is Chan Wu. Flying through the radiation storm now. Readings are about 3 times Earth solar storm levels. Pretty mild, actually." "Copy that, Chan Wu. How's the visibility?" "Clear enough. The hive creatures seem to be having trouble with the radiation, too. They're moving slower, probably trying to minimize exposure." Admiral Kang Ho listened to this exchange in shock. "Commander, are you saying the radiation that's designed to kill your pilots is actually hindering the hive more than your people?" "That's correct, Admiral. Humans evolved under constant radiation exposure from our sun. This level is uncomfortable but not dangerous for us. The hive apparently didn't evolve with that pressure." The tactical implications were staggering. The humans could fight in environments that damaged their enemies more than themselves, but nothing prepared the galaxy for what they witnessed, when hive forces managed to damage human ships and injure human personnel. Dr. So-Young was aboard the medical vessel Nightingale when the first wave of human casualties arrived. The Galactic Council medical observers expected to see broken, defeated warriors requiring immediate evacuation. Instead, they saw humans with injuries that should have been fatal continuing to fight. "This is Marine Jae-Wan," came a transmission from the surface. "Took a hive claw through the left lung. Dr. So-Young, can you patch me up? I need to get back to my squad." "Jae-Wan, you have a punctured lung. You need immediate evacuation," Dr. So-Young replied. "Negative, Doc. I've still got one lung working fine. Squad needs me more than I need medical leave." The Galactic Medical experts watched in horror as Dr. So-Young performed surgery on Jae-Wan, while he remained conscious and alert, discussing tactical situations with his unit commanders. What they were witnessing was impossible by their medical understanding. "Dr. So-Young," transmitted Veltar Medical Chief Hyo-Jin, "how is he still functioning?" "Humans have redundant systems," So-Young explained while working. 2 lungs, 2 kidneys, backup circulation pathways. We evolved with the assumption that we'd be regularly injured and need to keep functioning. But the pain tolerance... Pain is just information," Jae-Wan said from the operating table. It tells me something's wrong, but it doesn't stop me from doing what needs to be done. This philosophy became apparent throughout the human forces. Injuries that would disable other species were treated as minor inconveniences. Humans with broken bones continued fighting. Pilots with damaged ships pushed their vessels beyond safe operational limits. Captain J1, despite his injury, was back in action within hours, coordinating with Veltar forces and teaching them human tactical principles. The key, he explained to Admiral Kang Ho, is understanding that your enemy expects you to behave rationally. When you're surrounded, they expect you to surrender. When you're outnumbered, they expect you to retreat. When you're injured, they expect you to stop fighting. And humans don't do what's expected? We do the opposite. When surrounded, we attack in all directions. When outnumbered, we make ourselves harder to kill so the numbers matter less. When injured, we get angry. The truth of this became clear when the Hive attempted their final desperate strategy, a massive assault designed to overwhelm human positions through sheer numbers. What they encountered was something no galactic species had ever seen: humans who became more dangerous when threatened. "This is Squad Leader Wu Jin," came a transmission from the front lines. "Hive assault incoming. Estimated numbers, well, a lot. Requesting permission to deploy enhanced countermeasures." "Define enhanced," Admiral Seung-Wan requested. "Everything. We brought, sir. Time to show them what a Deathworld species does when we're really trying." The weapons that emerged from human arsenals shocked even their allies. Devices that used principles of destruction unknown to galactic science. Explosives that worked by manipulating matter at the molecular level. Energy weapons that drew power from environmental sources. "Where did you learn to build weapons like this?" Admiral Kang Ho asked. "From fighting our own planet," replied weapons specialist Min Jung. "Earth doesn't just have dangerous creatures. It has dangerous weather, dangerous geology, dangerous chemistry. We learned to use environmental forces as tools." The Hive assault broke against human defenses like water against stone. But more than that, the humans pursued the retreating forces with a relentless efficiency that spoke of millions of years of predator evolution. "Sir," reported Scout Leader Dabin, "Hive forces are in full retreat. They're abandoning the entire sector." "Pursuing?" "Negative, sir. They're moving faster than they did during their advance. This isn't strategic withdrawal, this is panic flight." For the first time in galactic history, the Hive was running away. Dr. Tae Jin studied the biological readings from fleeing Hive organisms. They're exhibiting classic stress responses, fear patterns. The Hive has learned that humans are apex predators, and their instincts are telling them to flee. "But they're supposed to be the ultimate biological threat," Dr. Ji-won said. "They're the ultimate biological threat to civilized species," Dr. He-jin corrected. "But humans aren't civilized in the way the galaxy understands civilization. We're barely domesticated Deathworld predators who learn to use tools and be polite." As the last Hive ships disappeared from sensor range, the true scope of human victory became clear. Not only had they defeated an enemy that had consumed 17 worlds, they had done it so thoroughly that the Hive was fleeing the entire galactic region. "Admiral Seung-Wan," transmitted Admiral Kang Ho, "the galactic databases need to be updated. Deathworld species aren't just dangerous to themselves, they're the solution to threats that civilized species can't handle." "We prefer the term enthusiastically." "Helpful," Seung-Wan replied. "But yes, Admiral, sometimes the galaxy needs someone who's comfortable with impossible situations." As human medical teams worked to save both human and alien wounded, using techniques that seemed like magic to other species, the galaxy began to understand a new truth. The most dangerous beings in known space had just declared themselves the protectors of the weak, and they had the firepower, the determination, and the sheer bloody-minded stubbornness to make it work. 6 months after the Battle of Luminara, the galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. Ambassador In-sung stood in the newly constructed Galactic Cooperation Center, a station built with both human engineering and Veltar crystal technology. The impossible had become routine. Deathworlders and civilized species working together. "The efficiency reports are remarkable," Admiral Kang Ho said, his crystal body glowing with satisfaction as he reviewed the data. human-Veltar joint construction. Projects are completing 300% faster than either species could manage alone. Insung nodded, watching through the station windows as human and Veltar crews worked on the outer hull. The humans provided the physical strength and environmental tolerance, while the Veltar offered energy manipulation techniques that made construction almost effortless. The galaxy is learning that cooperation creates strength, Insung replied. Your people give us precision and efficiency. We give you durability and determination. The success of the joint projects had attracted attention from across the galaxy. What started as a desperate rescue mission had become the foundation for a new kind of alliance. Ambassador called Communications Officer Na Young from her station. Incoming priority transmission from the Etherian Collective. They're requesting assistance with what they call a biological contamination crisis. Insung smiled. Another SOS call? More like a desperate plea, Na Young replied, adjusting her headset. Apparently, they've encountered an aggressive plant species that's consuming their agricultural worlds. Their description matches several Earth organisms. The pattern had repeated itself across the galaxy. Species that had evolved in safe, controlled environments found themselves facing threats they couldn't understand or fight. Aggressive organisms, environmental disasters, technological challenges that required thinking outside civilized parameters. Each time they called Earth. Commander Na Young had established the Deathworld Response Division specifically to handle these requests. Her headquarters buzzed with activity as teams prepared for deployment to worlds facing impossible situations. Wanyu, Kronar are requesting assistance with asteroid mining, reported deployment coordinator Sung Ho. Apparently the rocks they're trying to harvest are in a radiation field that kills their workers. Standard human mining operation, Na Young replied. Send Team 7. They just finished establishing mining operations in the Proxima system. The Zephyrian Republic needs help with ocean exploration. They can't survive the pressure at the depths they need to reach. Team 12. They're experienced in deep-sea operations, and the Deltarian Empire is asking for help with what they call impossible engineering. They need to build structures on a high-gravity world. Team 3. They love a good engineering challenge. What amazed the galaxy most wasn't just human capability, but human attitude. When faced with requests for help, humans didn't ask what they would receive in return. They asked what was needed and how quickly they could get there. Engineer Wu Jin exemplified this approach. Currently working on Veltar homeworld restoration, he had volunteered for 17 different assistance missions in 6 months. Dr. Jiwan, he called from across the construction site. We've figured out how to integrate human structural systems with Veltar energy networks. Want to see something amazing? The resulting hybrid technology was indeed remarkable. Human materials provided durability that could withstand disasters, while Veltar energy systems provided efficiency that made human technology far more elegant. The applications are limitless, Jiwan said, studying the readouts. Our crystal technology becomes stronger when supported by human engineering, and your systems become more efficient when powered by our energy manipulation. But the real change was happening at the political level. Ambassador Insung found himself in the unexpected position of rebuilding galactic civilization from the ground up. The old system was based on fear, explained Council Leader Morven during one of their regular meetings. Strong species dominated weak ones. Military power determined political influence. The Hive crisis showed us how vulnerable that made everyone. And now? Insung asked. Now we're building something new. A system based on cooperation where each species contributes their unique capabilities for mutual benefit. The Deathworld Defense Pact had grown from a simple alliance to a galactic transformation. Species were learning that survival traits could become rescue traits, that diversity created strength, and that the most dangerous beings in space might also be the most valuable friends. Admiral Kang Ho had become the Pact's military coordinator, working with human officers to develop new tactical doctrines. We're teaching other species human survival principles, he explained during a strategy meeting. Not to make them dangerous, but to make them resilient. The training programs were yielding remarkable results. Civilized species were learning To think like Deathworlders when facing impossible situations. They couldn't match human physical capabilities, but they could adopt human mental approaches to problem solving. The key is changing how you think about problems, explained Captain J1 to a class of mixed species officers. When your people see an impossible situation, you think about how to avoid it. When humans see an impossible situation, we think about how to break it down into smaller possible pieces. And then? Asked a Kronar officer. Then we solve each piece until the impossible becomes inevitable. This philosophy was spreading throughout the galaxy, carried by species who had worked alongside humans and learned their approaches to adversity. But perhaps the most significant change was happening in how the galaxy viewed Deathworlds themselves. Dr. Heejin had established the Deathworld Research Institute, studying planets that had previously been written off as uninhabitable. What they found challenged every assumption about planetary habitability. These worlds aren't just sources of dangerous species, she explained during a presentation to the Galactic Science Council. They're laboratories for evolutionary innovation. Every challenge these planets present creates new solutions, new adaptations, new possibilities. Are you suggesting we should colonize Deathworlds? Asked Dr. Jiwan. I'm suggesting we should learn from them. Human technology, Veltar energy manipulation, Kronar metallurgy, Etherian biotechnology. Imagine what we could create if we combined all of these approaches with the innovation pressure of a challenging environment. The first joint Deathworld expedition was already being planned. A mixed-species team would establish a research station on a Class 7 Deathworld, protected by human environmental technology, but staffed by scientists from across the galaxy. As In Sung reviewed the mission parameters, he reflected on how much had changed. 6 months ago, the galaxy had seen Deathworlders as monsters to be avoided. Now they were partners in building a stronger, more resilient civilization. Ambassador, Nayoung called from her communication station. Priority transmission from the Outer Rim. The Hadari Republic is reporting contact with another hive cluster. In Sung smiled. Response time? Fleet Admiral Sung-Wan reports the Warhost can be deployed within 6 hours. Tell them help is on the way. And Na-Young? Yes, sir. Add the standard message. You are not alone. Deathworlders protect their friends. As the human fleet prepared for another impossible mission, species across the galaxy watched with a mixture of awe and gratitude. The most dangerous beings in known space had appointed themselves guardians of the weak, protectors of the innocent, and champions of the impossible. The Hive had taught the galaxy an important lesson. Sometimes civilized, solutions weren't enough. Sometimes you needed someone who had learned to fight nightmares in order to defeat the darkness. The galaxy had found those someones, and they came from a little blue death world called Earth, where the inhabitants had learned that impossible just meant no one had tried hard enough yet. From his position aboard the flagship Indomitable, Admiral Sheng-Wan looked out at the stars and smiled. Somewhere out there, someone was facing something impossible, something that civilized species couldn't handle, couldn't fight, couldn't survive. But they weren't alone anymore. The Deathworlders were coming, and they were bringing friends.